The Giant TCR was first released in the mid-1990s and it's been a staple of Giant's range ever since, and it is one of the most popular bikes in the world. And that was proven from its updated launch just a couple of months ago in May, where we saw huge amounts of interest and outpouring over this bike. Now I'm back with my full review and I'm ready to explain to you what I loved and what I didn't love about this, the Giant TCR Advanced SL Zero Disc that costs £9,499. Let's get into it. So I'd just like to take a minute to position this bike in Giant's range and against other competitors. So in the Advanced SL range, there are two complete built bikes. There is a model that I have on test here, and there is also a Force ETAP equipped model, and there is a frame set as well. Now, the Giant TCR range is really expansive, and at the other end of the scale, as it were, you can pick up a complete build disc brake bike for £1,799, and in between there and this top end model, there is a whole range of different bikes and frame sets available. And bucking the trend of most big bike companies with their recent releases, Giant also build a complete set of rim brake bikes as well. So if you're still into those old-fashioned stoppers, you can pick up a complete built bike from Giant in this new 2021 TCR. £9,499 is a huge sum of money, and as you would expect, you get pretty top-end components on this Advanced SL Zero Disc model. Starting with the group sets, it is interesting to see that Giant have only spec'd SRAM group sets on their top-end bikes. There are no Shimano group sets to be seen at this level. My bike came with a SRAM Red ETAP AXS group set. It was a 48-35 chainring setup. That is the equivalent of a 52-36. Having spent a lot of time on these group sets, I've really swung round to them actually. I used to be very much in Shimano's camp, and now I love these SRAM group sets. I keep thinking about them all the time. I really do enjoy riding them. Something about the way they've sized the gears. It's really effortless on the legs. I find it's much less fatiguing than riding a Shimano group set. They feel really efficient, which is obviously what they aim to do with the new 12 sprocket and the way they reimagined the cassette sizing and the chainring sizing. And I do find that I have to shift down less. I can manage more in the big ring on the wider cassette. So that is top marks from me for that group set. I absolutely love it. It also comes equipped with a Quark power meter as standard, which is great. We love it as a power meter. We think it's pretty much faultless. It's one of the best available, and I've had no dropouts or misreadings in the whole time I've been riding this bike. So what is interesting about this bike though, is it comes equipped with Cadex 42mm wheels. Now for those that don't know, Cadex is a sister company to Giant, and it's not unusual for brands to spec the components of their sister company on their top end models. Think about Specialized, you might get Rover wheels, Trek, Bontrager, Scott, Syncross, and now so it is with Giant, you get Cadex. As I mentioned, they're 42mm deep, and they use a composite carbon system that Giant has developed in-house. And as you would expect from Giant, they are also tubeless ready to boot. And as Giant has done with all of its carbon bikes, this bike will also ship tubeless as standard. And I've been riding this set up and ready to go. On the whole, I found the wheels to be a perfect partner for the frame, which is very performance focused. They've proven to be very stiff and really, really efficient with an absolute superb rolling speed. I don't think they ever really drop below 32 kilometers an hour when you're riding on the flat or in a straight line. I have found them to be susceptible to crosswinds, and on a couple of very gusty days I did have some slight scares, but that is also a partnership with just how light the bike is. The rest of the bike is built up with a smattering of Cadex components as well. The saddle is a Cadex saddle, the bar and stem, Cadex, and the tyres are the brand's 25mm race tyres. Does it feel like you're missing any value for £9,999? Not really. The bike comes in a hair cheaper than the competitive and comparative Specialized S-Works Tarmac or the Specialized Venge. Cannondale Super 6 is all up there as well, and as standard across those bikes you also get a power meter as standard, you get a full carbon frame, your carbon handlebar and carbon stem. That's all present and correct on the Giant. So what is new on the Giant TCR? There have been changes to the bike to improve its aerodynamics. For starters, the fork and the head tube, so the whole of the front end basically, now use flatback profiling. This is something that Giant learned from its Propel Aero bike. It also has new shaped tubing for its down tube, its top tube and its seat tube. It now uses a truncated ellipse tubing shape, which is proven to be more aerodynamic than a standard aerofoil shape that other lightweight bikes might use. Now Giant tell us that all of these changes have made the bike faster than the previous model. It's something like 7 or 8 watts faster than the previous TCR, which is quite significant, although we can't verify it. According to Giant, it is also as fast as the S-Works Tarmac and the Cervelo R5, and significantly faster than the Trek Emonda. That new flat-backed fork can now accommodate 32mm tyres on a disc brake model or 28mm tyres on a rim brake model, giving the bike an extra level of versatility. The bike's down tube, as well as receiving that new truncated ellipse tubing profile, has also been increased in size, as has the bike's bottom bracket, and this has boosted stiffness altogether across the bike, and it now is best in class according to Giant. This is happening in a couple of different ways. The first is that Giant is now making its own carbon fibre rather than buying it in from an external company. This is to improve its quality, Giant says, and the carbon that this bike uses is a T700 type. It also uses a new robotic layup device, which means it could reduce the amount of carbon it uses in its swatches to put on the bike's frame, because it could be more precise when it laid them up. This has helped reduce the bike's weight. Now all of these changes have given what Giant says is best in class stiffness, and I would really have to agree, having ridden this, it is incredibly stiff. So the bike is lighter. Giant does claim it to be lighter than the previous model. It comes in at 6.6 kilos as standard out of the box. Now that is pretty light. So what remains the same between this and the old model of the TCR? Well, for starters, it maintains that iconic TCR shape. It has continued the use of the compact frame design, so both the front and rear triangles are smaller, which does make them stiffer. It is a design that has been almost universally rated since it was first debuted in the mid-90s, and apart from some small changes to the tubing shape, as I've already mentioned, Giant has pretty much stuck with this compact frame design for the whole of the TCR's lifespan. I will salute Giant for not changing from this design. There is a real current theme of dropping seat stays on bikes, and Giant, recognising that it does have a really iconic frame design, has chosen to not do that and instead to stick to its guns. It does also state that because it does have such a radically sloping top tube, it does in effect have those drop seat stays. They're just not as visible. So if you took that top tube and ran it horizontally into the seat post, the stays would be significantly dropped below it. So carrying across from the old TCR to the new TCR is the Overdrive 2 steerer, which Giant says boosts front end stiffness, and we'll come on to this a bit when I talk about handling a little later on in the video. And finally, as you can see, the ISP seat post remains. That is the fixed seat post that is standard on all SL bike models. Any other TCR model below that comes with an adjustable one. Now, there will be people that are worried about a fixed seat post, and I also have those same fears. Despite the fact I know my saddle height, I was still terrified about the idea of Giant cutting carbon to my height. But I'm guessing that if you're going to spend £9,499 on a bike, you're probably going to have had a bike fit, or you will do before you drop that type of cash. However, as we do know from talking to bike fitters, that it's not an exact science. It's more of sort of a window into the ballpark that you're looking for, and that saddle height can change depending on flexibility and fitness. Recognising this, however, Giant have spec'd 2 different ISP seat clamps that come with the bike. One offers 25mm of adjustment and the other offers 45mm of adjustment, and both offer different levels of adjustment from fore and aft manoeuvrability as well. This is great. It lets you take some of that stress out of the decision of cutting the seat post, and it also offers the bike some resale value as well. So I'm going to move on to the bike's ride quality now, and the first thing I'm going to say is that the Giant TCR rides more akin to an aero bike than to a lightweight bike. And by that I mean it's just incredibly stiff. I think this is by far the stiffest bike I've ridden, definitely all year, but maybe ever. The frame and the way it reacts when you pedal and the amount of forward momentum you get from what feels like even the slightest input of power is just, is grin-inducing. It really is amazing fun. But it is different. It does feel different as a frame to other top-end lightweight bikes. The TCR is incredibly coarse and it's really rigid, and it transfers so much more of the road surface into you than the tarmac does, which has this real sort of numbed quality. Like, it transfers just enough of the road surface for you to feel like you're riding a bike which is very fast, and not enough of the road surface to sort of leaving you a bit sore. And both fall on very different sides of a very fine line. The Giant side of that line is a little bit uncomfortable. You feel every part of the road that you ride over on the TCR, and for a lot of the time it's really good fun. Like, you feel super connected to the bike, you feel incredibly connected to the road, and you feel like you're just going hell for leather the whole time. And that's great over maybe 40 Ks, potentially 50 Ks, but over 100 kilometers the TCR becomes a little bit uncomfortable. And when you start hitting potholes after that period of time and you start feeling really sore, the bike gives you a lot of feedback, and you feel it in your back and in your shoulders and your neck. But all of this translates into a feeling of immediate speed and incredible efficiency. It's amazing how much fun it is to basically put what feels like very little power through the pedals and feel the bike move forward. Or the feeling that when you're on a climb you could just attack again. It's very clear to me that all of Giant's marketing speak and tech speak translates into the ride quality of this bike. The compact frame design does boost the bike's stiffness. The oversized down tube and the oversized head tube and the bigger bottom bracket all create speed when you're out riding on the road. So I'll move on to the bike's handling and descending, and it is very direct. When you're over the top of the bars on a descent or in the drops, you can maneuver it on what feels like an incredibly fine line. And I do think that overdrive steerer has a lot to do with that. That super stiff front end lets you pinpoint what you want to do and pick where you want to go, and the bike will just let you move with ease. I did, however, notice some slight speed wobbles. Now, I'm putting that down to this bike being very light. It comes in well under 6.9 kilos on our scales, and I think it has a lot to do with lifting the front end. When you shift your weight back, it just causes the front to shimmy. But it's definitely something I have noticed when riding flat out on the flat. Now, while that front end is very stiff, I have had a slightly unusual problem in it, in that when I brake sharply on the front brake, there is a mysterious knocking noise. And then when I pedal again, it is sort of released. So imagine you're coming into a traffic light, you brake sharply on the front brake, something knocks forward. And then when you go again at the traffic light, so you accelerate away, it is sort of released and it's accompanied by another knocking noise. It does not knock continuously or separately, it's only in that direct action. And this perplexed me for a while. I didn't understand what it was. And then, having contacted Giant, we chatted for a bit, and they said it's probably the disc brakes on the rotors, the pads. They can shimmy forward and backwards, and it did. When I duly inspected them, there was a couple of millimeter movement coming from down there. Okay, on to the big question. If I had £9,499 burning a hole in my pocket, would I buy this bike? Honestly, no. Not because it isn't an absolutely terrific racing machine, because it absolutely is. This is the stiffest bike I've ever ridden. It's the most efficient bike I've ever ridden. It's took me on my fastest ever rides, and I had a grin-inducing good time riding aboard the Giant TCR. However, the thing which really nails it for me is that it's not as comfortable as its competitors over 100 kilometers. And that's a really important thing for me. All of my riding is based around sort of long rides. I don't race, but I do enjoy the sensation of speed. However, I enjoy that sensation of speed in a comfortable way. And that's what say the Tarmac does for me or the Super 6 Evo, and it isn't what this top-end TCR did for me over those long rides. Now I'm sure that some of this harsh ride quality does come through that fixed seat post, and you can get a TCR which comes with a Di2 group set and an adjustable seat post, and that might be a much better option, and I'm looking forward to testing one of those to find out if it is more comfortable and whether that would be the better bike for me. So in summary, it's incredibly quick, it's incredibly stiff, it's amazingly efficient, but it is a little bit harsh. So there you go, that is my review of the Giant TCR Advanced SL Zero disc, which costs £9,499. If you have enjoyed this video, then please do give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the Cycling Weekly YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, then feel free to drop them in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Now, I'll be back soon with more great tech-related content, but until then, I'll see you soon.